You're watching South Asia Newsline and have the top stories we are tracking for you on Tuesday, the 13th of February. India's PM Modi embarks on official visit to UAE and Qatar. Uncertainty over next government deepens after Pakistan elections. And Baloch activist alleges Pakistani state involved in disappearance of protesters. And now for all the details. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday embarked on an official visit to the UAE, where he is scheduled to participate in the inauguration of Abu Dhabi's first ever Hindu temple. In his third visit to the Middle Eastern country in the past 8 months, the Prime Minister will hold bilateral engagements with UAE's top leadership, including President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Highlighting the cooperation between the two countries, PM Modi said over the last 9 years, India's cooperation with the UAE has grown manifold in many sectors. During the visit, he will also address members of the Indian community at the special event in Abu Dhabi. He will also address the World Government Summit in last leg of the visit before embarking for Qatar, where he is scheduled to meet the Amir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Chaos engulfed the Punjab-Haryana border on Tuesday as farmers began a march towards capital New Delhi in order to press their demands. As tensions escalated, police officials fired tear gas shells, used water cannons and detained some protesters in order to disperse the crowd. Meanwhile, the protesting farmers used tractors and trolleys to break through barricades and lifted away cement blocks placed to restrict their movement. Heightened security measures were also in place on the outskirts of Delhi, where police officials stood guard behind multi-layered barricades. In reminiscent of the similar protest in 2021, authorities have prohibited larger gatherings in the city and imposed restrictions on entry and exit at few metro stations. The protesting farm unions are seeking guarantees backed by law for more state support and buying of crops at minimum price and a promise to double their income. Pakistan's elections have returned a hung parliament, with no party getting enough seats in the National Assembly to form a government by itself. The polls were marred by militant violence, political turmoil and questions of transparency. Former Prime Ministers Nawaz Sharif and Imran Khan both have declared victory, which has added pall of uncertainty among the citizens. The final results of Pakistan's national elections put independents, backed by jailed former PM Imran Khan, in the lead with 93 of 264 seats. Local media reports suggest that at least 10 independent candidates who had won the elections have declared support for Nawaz Sharif's PMLN party. The squabbling is likely to deepen concerns about the stability of the nation, which is mired in an economic crisis and battling a surge in militant violence.
मेरा नहीं ख्याल कि ये फेयर इलेक्शंस हुए हैं। मेरे ख्याल में नताइज तब्दील किए गए हैं, तो इस तरह जब चीज़ें होती हैं तो फिर वो ज़्यादा देर तक नहीं चलती। तो मेरा नहीं ख्याल कि ये मे बी 1 साल, 1.5 साल या 2 साल से ज़्यादा हुकूमत चलती हुई नज़र नहीं आ रही।
It is given a mixed mandate. We can safely say that it is a hung parliament. The largest chunk of candidates who have been elected, they belong to the independent category. Most of them are PTI-backed candidates, but unfortunately, because they have been deprived of their election symbol, they cannot operate as a political party within the parliament. So the choice before them is either they form a separate new group or they join some other political party. So it is yet to be seen what's going to happen to them.
Moving on, activist Mahrang Baloch has blamed the Pakistani state for abduction and coercion of protesters who took part in the recent Baloch movement against enforced disappearances. A report.
Activist Mahrang Baloch has raised concern over enforced disappearances and coercion of protesters who took part in the recent Baloch movement against Pakistani atrocities. Taking to X, she said since they began their protest in November, dozens have been disappeared, blackmailed and coerced, and the country's politicians remain indifferent to their plight. The Baloch protesters were forced to end their months-long movement in Islamabad in late January after being subjected to repeated intimidation and detentions, while the authorities launched a disinformation campaign against them. The Baloch people have been targets of so-called military operations, ethnic stereotyping and abductions by the Pakistani state, while it continues to exploit their natural resources. The situation is not highlighted by the local media, forcing them to seek intervention through global platforms.
The Human Rights Watch, in its latest report, has highlighted the sharp reduction in financial and technical development support for Afghanistan's public health system since the Taliban takeover. The report states that the lack of sufficient healthcare services has undermined the right to health for millions of Afghans and has left the population vulnerable to disease and other consequences of inadequate medical care, which has mostly affected women. The Taliban's restrictions on women's freedom of movement and employment with humanitarian and other organizations have gravely impeded their access to health services, while bans on education have blocked almost all training of future female healthcare workers in the country. Due to these restrictive policies, no country has formally recognized Taliban's regime in Afghanistan. And 18 Indian fishermen from Tamil Nadu state who were arrested by Sri Lankan Navy recently returned home on Tuesday. A local court in Sri Lanka ordered their release earlier this month following their detention for alleged maritime violations. They arrived in Chennai from Colombo by air and were received by officials of the Tamil Nadu Fisheries Department. India and Sri Lanka share an expansive oceanic border without any perceptible demarcation. Fishermen from both the countries frequently stray into each other's territory while netting their catch and end up spending years in jails. Last year, a total of 240 Indian fishermen were arrested by Sri Lankan Navy for alleged poaching. Yoga enthusiasts in India's capital New Delhi got an extra dosage of puppy cuteness during their yoga class ahead of this year's Valentine's Day. Paws and Poses, which specializes in yoga sessions paired with dogs across India, held a Valentine's Day themed course this past weekend featuring 11 rescue puppies including golden retrievers and a Shih Tzu, which are all up for adoption.
And to do it around Valentine's Day, we actually wanted to put together something special for couples, friends, anyone that you're celebrating Valentine's Day with, to just come together, share a few good moments.
The session lasted for about an hour and was open to couples and singles alike. While some hardline group protest Valentine's Day in India, calling it immoral and a corruption of country's ancient civilization, the year's most romantic day has become increasingly popular, especially in urban areas.
Valentine's is all about love, and the best way to show love is to bring someone who can give it back to you in the most truest form. So I'm so happy that they could be part of this.
That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time tomorrow. Good night.